Hello, great YouTubers, readers, writers, travelers. Welcome back to the channel. Once again, you're here, I know, just to see my plants. And look how beautifully it is growing. In fact, I need to trim it at some point. I'm not quite sure what the next steps are, but that is coming. And today I wanted to chat about the last 3 countries that I've lived in and do a comparison if I can. A little bit of a comparison, or really just share some experiences. The first one being the UK, the United Kingdom, my home, my country of birth, and up until relatively recently, my country of citizenship. It still is my country of citizenship, but I am also these days an American citizen, so I have dual citizenship. And the UK for me was interesting. Of course, it was a place was where I was born, where I grew up, but I did move for a period of time to South Africa, spent a very important portion of my life in South Africa, and then decided to go back to England in 2001 to rediscover the country of my birth. And I loved it. I still love it. It's a place of enchanting, ethereal, mysterious castles, rolling meadows, and beautiful countryside, genteel people, the land of poetry. But once I'd been back there, I'd say a decade. I don't know why it was particularly, but sometime around 2011, having been back there a decade, things just started to explode for me. The wheels started to fall off. I was getting really tired of every day waking up and it was raining and grey, and you want to take a bike ride, but you can't because it's just too wet and miserable. So you decide you want to get in your car and go somewhere, but just running from your front door to your car, you get soaked. And then when you drive to wherever you're going, there's no parking because there are too many people, too many cars, not enough space, and everything was just becoming difficult to manage. And of course, it's not the country's fault. It's each individual has their own thing that they're going through in life, and I'd been through some difficult relationship endings. I wasn't earning a lot of money, so I'd managed to dig myself out of debt. I'd completed my bachelor's degree, and I began my master's degree around 2012, the beginning of 2012. By 2013, I was desperate, I was depressed, and I wanted to get out of the country. But I felt hopeless. I felt there was nowhere to go, no opportunity. I just simply didn't know what to do. I'd spoken to my parents and said I was probably going to quit my job, but I didn't really know what was next. I was going to try and do something more simplistic. I was driving 36 miles one way to work every day, and of course back in those days it was 5 days in the office. I was driving 72 miles round trip every day, and that was really depressing me even more. And at that point I was absolutely fortunate beyond belief when I volunteered for a weekend of work without pay and met a global team, one of whom was the head of Western Europe, Middle East and Africa for IT services. And by the end of the weekend, he had offered me a job in his team and the opportunity to move to Madrid, Spain. So, towards the end of 2013, I had to say goodbye to everything in the UK and I packed my little bags, just a suitcase and a backpack, and I left for Spain. And I'd spent 2 months over the summer there on a brief project just to get a feeling for the country, and I knew that I loved it. I knew that it was a place that I wanted to go to. So when I departed the UK, I was confident that Spain would become my home forever. And I was comfortable in the idea that I could fly back to England relatively often. And in fact I did make it a thing that I travelled back every 6 weeks. Usually every 6 weeks I would take a weekend trip back to England. And the reason that I could do that was because when I moved to Spain, of course I had the ability to be able to look at where I was going to be working and then choose a place that was within walking distance of work. Spain is also, Madrid in particular, is very well connected in terms of public transport. It's very walkable. The metro is amazing. Taxis and Ubers are relatively cheap, so it's quite easy to get around and get wherever you want to be. So I never had a car, so no car payments, no petrol payments, no insurance payments, no maintenance payments. The cost of living was a lot less than the UK, and my salary had edged up a little bit because my position was a promotion. So suddenly I found myself in a place of blue skies, amazing brightness and sunshine, friendly people, amazing food, with a very low cost of living and a better salary. I was living like a king, and I was absolutely overjoyed and overwhelmed with the feeling of good fortune to have the opportunity to be there. However, I remember when I first found my apartment after a few weeks, thinking it's really nice and I really love the place, but it's not the USA. I'll get to that later, but I'd had a lifelong dream of moving to the United States. Nevertheless, I was so happy in Spain that I felt like this was it. After 6 months, I was completely I'd met a wonderful circle of friends. I was going to live concerts. I was the co-founder of a social community that we used to have every Thursday night, and then it would also be huge parties once every 3 months. And I became the vocalist of a band, and life was really just incredible. It was truly incredible to be there, and I was really enjoying it to the absolute maximum. And then, like anything, as time goes on, I'd been there 3 years. I completed my master's degree while I was in Spain. I wrote my dissertation there. Travelled back to England with my girlfriend at the time. We travelled back for the master's ceremony, which was at Exeter Cathedral, and a fantastic time, except the day was ruined a little bit because it was the day of the Brexit vote, and of course Britain had decided to exit the European Union, which to me was a devastating, heartbreaking blow. And as time went on, I was getting into my 3rd year in Spain, and I was being introduced as, this is the English guy. He's been living in Spain 3 years, still doesn't speak Spanish. I could speak a little bit of Spanish. I could get by, but my job was a very, very demanding, very busy one. 6 months in, I was doing Spanish lessons, and my manager at the time asked me if I would mind postponing them because there was so much going on in terms of work and the projects. So I did, but it started to get me down a little bit in the sense that I couldn't speak Spanish, and it made me feel a little bit like I was a child, not really being able to live a fully, truly independent, interactive life where I was fully immersed in the community and my local society. And so just as I was starting to have those brief flickers of doubt, I got another opportunity through work, and they asked me, would I be interested in moving to Boston, Massachusetts, the United States of America, into a role which was a larger group, a larger team, and seemed like a real challenge. And even though I was mostly happy in Spain at the time, I realized that if I didn't take the opportunity right there and then, I would never have had the opportunity again. So I decided to set sail for the United States. So almost 3 years to the day that I had left the UK to move to Spain, I was leaving Spain to move to the USA. And this one proved to be probably even more difficult than the move from the UK. The UK, I'd given up friends and I'd given up pets and so on. When I was leaving Spain, I was giving up my girlfriend, I was giving up my band, I was giving up the social community that we had built, I was giving up a massive circle of friends. And I was also nervous at the idea of no longer being able to rely on public transport. I was moving to a place where, again, my salary was edging up, but not an absolutely massive amount, whereas the cost of living was rising incredibly. And I was moving to Boston, which is notoriously one of the most expensive places in the US to live. But I was excited about the opportunity. And because I had been given a chance to spend a week there before moving, I'd identified the location that I wanted to live in. I was working in a rural part of Cambridge, Massachusetts, just outside of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I decided, based on the fact that not having a car saved me so much money and so much pain and brought me so much happiness when I was in Spain, I decided to be determined and try to do the same thing in the US. When I first arrived and told people that's what I wanted to do, they laughed at me and said, good luck living in the United States with no car. Anyway, I managed to do it because I paid a little bit more for my rent, but I lived in an apartment building that was close to a metro station, and it was the very last metro station before you went out into rural Massachusetts. But it was also the stop that was 15 minutes from Harvard, 18 minutes from MIT. I could walk to Harvard, I could walk to MIT, I could ride my bicycle, and then when I had to go to work, I could just jump on a little shuttle that was partly subsidized by our company, and I would ride the shuttle out to the office on this beautiful lake in the woods, come home on the shuttle after work, and then if I wanted to walk or cycle or take the metro to Harvard or MIT or beyond that to downtown Boston, and then of course out to places like Back Bay to go to the famous Fenway Park or wherever you may want to go out there. And the first 6 months were really painful, really painful. I remember staying inside most of the time because I was afraid of spending money. I was missing my girlfriend terribly. I was lucky that I had made some friends because of a doctor that I knew who had moved from Spain to Boston. And so she introduced me to a group of crazy scientists and doctors, but they were all from Italy, from Germany, from the UK, Spain. And what happened was, they'd done their PhDs, they were working in the different medical facilities around Massachusetts, and one by one they started to go back to Italy or Germany or whatever it was, or they were getting married or doing something else. So the group kind of broke up, and I was left to my own means. Of course, after a year, I found a girlfriend who was also a scientist, a neurologist from Canada, and fell deeply in love, but that never worked out. It never lasted. She ran away relatively quickly and broke my heart, but I loved Cambridge. I really loved being back in a place where I could just speak to anybody, anywhere, just the little things that matter. Getting into an elevator and there's a stranger in the elevator and they'll say something about the weather or about their dog or something that's happening, and you can interact, and it makes you feel like you are an integrated member of the society in which you live. And so, yes, again, after I spent 5 years living in Cambridge, Massachusetts, of course, part of that was the pandemic, and our office in Massachusetts closed. I became 100% remote employee, but I was being persuaded a little bit, and to consider moving to Dallas, Texas. And I thought, I'm sitting at home, working from home from an apartment that's costing me an absolute fortune, in a city that's costing me an absolute fortune. Why don't I reduce my living costs by 2/3 to 50%, and go and try something new, and try a new place, try the heartland, Dallas, Texas. So in 2021, I moved to Dallas, Texas. And of course, this time I did have to buy a car. Well, I leased a car. And I'm really enjoying Dallas. I really enjoy driving around and knowing that I can find parking wherever I go. I still have a bicycle and I cycle everywhere I can. I use the train to get around as much as I can. If ever there's a bus or a train, I will use that rather than drive. But in general, here I am, happy and loving it. And I suppose what I would say, if you're thinking of moving to a new country, every place that I've lived, I've loved. And yes, in the UK, I did get a little bit depressed after a while because of the weather. Madrid, I got a little bit depressed at times because of the language or cultural barrier. And in the US, I get depressed sometimes because of political situations. And, I probably need to create a video all about the mindset of people in different places when it comes to community versus selfish behavior or whatever it may be. But in the end, every place has given me joy, every place has given me happiness, every place has given me some problems. And right now I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I've had, and I'm grateful to be in the US. Next week I'm going to Salt Lake City for the first time, and I'll do some video from Salt Lake City. Shortly after that, I'm flying to Spain to go and visit Spain, and going to France to visit France, and then go for a workshop there. Fly back to the US, and the very first day that I'm back in the US, I'll be traveling to Las Vegas. And so I will try and provide some boring videos from those places for you to not enjoy. But thank you for listening to me waffle on endlessly. Take care of your good selves, be kind to people, and I will see you soon.